Hey, how's it going everyone? Today I'll be showing you how to make a simple white bread. All you need is a few ingredients, a couple pieces of equipment and your own two hands. It will take no more than 2 hours from start to finish. And once you've made your own, you'll never go back to shop bought bread. If you want to learn how to make this, keep watching. Let's start with the equipment. You'll need a temperature probe for measuring the temperature of your water and your dough. You'll need a dough scraper, which is a handy tool to have for making bread. You'll need a bowl to mix all your ingredients. You'll need a digital scale to weigh all your ingredients. Also something to cover your dough with. I use shower caps because they are free and reusable. A razor blade is the best way to cut your dough because you will need to score it to make it rise in the right place. But if you don't have a razor, just use a bread knife or something like that. You'll need a thick bottom pan or a Pyrex dish or a thick tray to bake your bread on. And perhaps most importantly, you'll need these. So let's start with the ingredients. Sea salt, because table salt is full of chemicals. Yeast, strong white bread flour, and some water at around 25 degrees Celsius. If your kitchen is cold, you want this to be maybe 1 degree higher. If it's warm in your kitchen, 1 degree lower. So let's start by pouring our tempered water in a bowl and adding the yeast, and then add the sea salt flakes and stir to dissolve. And finally add your flour and start mixing it around using your hand. It's important to use your hands because then you feel the dough developing. You will learn to gauge the development of the dough in your future baking. Now at first it might seem like a sticky mess, and you might think now, how is this going to become a nice fluffy piece of bread? Just keep at it and you'll see. Now keep mixing it with your hand until all the flour has absorbed all the water in the bowl. You want to keep doing this until there's no more dry bits. At this point we are only hydrating the flour, and once you've picked up all the dry parts and mixed it around for a while, you'll be able to chuck it out on your table and start working it. At this point you can take your handy little dough scraper and clean off your hand from any loose bits of dough that have been stuck to your fingers. Just get it all off and add it to your dough ball because it's part of your final loaf of bread basically. And once you've done this, you're ready to flip your dough out on your table and start working it by hand. Lots of people knead their dough differently, but I will show you my preferred method because I think it's the most efficient and easiest way to quickly develop your dough. As you can see, I'm using the heel of my right hand to push down and forwards, and the fingers of my left hand to fold the loose piece of dough underneath the heel of my right hand. And just repeat the motion. As you keep doing this, this will become second nature. Keep kneading for about 5 minutes and you'll see that the dough will become a lot less sticky and a lot smoother and softer. If you have any dough stuck to your hands, just rub them together like this, and it should all come loose and you can add it back into your dough ball. So after about 5 minutes you'll really start seeing the difference, and soon we will be ready to get our dough proofing for the first time. But before we do that, we need to organize it. So knead it a few more times and flip it upside down so it's smooth side up, and then roll it around on a table until it forms a little neat ball. There is another way of doing this. You can flip the dough upside down and then fold in the sides into the center, going around in a circle until you've reached the other end, and then flip it back upside down and it will be ready to go in a bowl for its first proof. Now once you've done that, you can see the difference between that soggy mess that we started with and the nice smooth dough ball that we have now. Now we are ready to place it in our bowl and leave it for its first proof. At this point you can also measure the temperature of the dough. If it's around 25 to 26 degrees Celsius, it's more or less perfect. Now we can start preheating our oven and the heavy tray turn the oven up to 220 degrees Celsius with no fan. If you can't switch off the fan, do 200 degrees. And then place your pan in there and it will be ready by the time the bread is ready to bake. Now half an hour later, we will fold the dough. This will give it extra strength, increase the gluten structure, and also equalize the temperature. You don't want it to be too warm on the inside and too cold on the outside. So flip the dough upside down and then fold the sides into the center, going around in a circle to finish until you finish where you started. And then flip it back smooth side up. At this point you will really see how much the dough is coming along. It's nice and smooth, and it should have risen slightly as well. So we'll place it back into a bowl and cover it and leave it for another 30 minutes. And now we'll be ready to shape the dough. You can see how much it's risen. It's about twice the size that we started with. You can test it by poking a floured finger into it, and if it leaves a nice little indentation, that means it's coming along nicely. So now lightly dust your work surface with flour. Flip the dough out once again upside down. And so the rule here is basically, whilst you're working with the dough, you want it to be smooth side down, but while it's resting, rising, or baking, it should be smooth side up. To shape our final loaf, we'll lightly pat it out in about an inch thick disc. You can pick it up, stretch it out, use your fingertips, don't be too harsh. You don't want to push out the fermentation gases. Now fold one side over 2/3 and the other side over the first side. And with the rolling and tucking motion, starting from the top, roll the dough into a little loaf until you've reached the very end. It should be nice and tight. Now you can place it on a piece of baking paper so it doesn't stick to the table, cover it, and leave it to proof for the last 30 minutes. Our oven and our pan should be nice and hot by now. Now get your pan out and place it on something that won't burn your table. Lightly dust your loaf with some flour. This will help with cutting it and also give it a nice finish when it's done baking. Now get your razor and do one confident long cut from end to end. Correct it if you need to. Get your bread in the oven and splash a tiny bit of water to create some steam. This will help the bread rising. Bake it for around 25 minutes. Once it's done, it should have a nice golden brown color. It should sound quite hollow when you tap it, and it should have a nice crispy crust. Now ideally you will let it cool down completely before cutting into it. Well, I'm sure we all love a bit of warm bread fresh from the oven. So after around 20 minutes, cut off a piece, top it with your favorite topping. I just love the simplicity of a little bit of butter and a little bit of sea salt. And enjoy. Happy baking. If you have any questions, write them down in the comments below, and I'll make sure to answer each and every one of them. And if you want to learn more about baking, subscribe because I will be posting weekly videos on this channel. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.